Having the knowledge of an electrician is one thing. I know so many electricians that are fantastic at their job, probably better than me, but they still work for somebody else. It's the business side of things that puts people off running their own business. And it shouldn't be like that, because it can be easy. And in some instances, it can be easier than actually working for somebody else. In this podcast, I'm going to venture into the world of running your own business and being your own boss. ToolBox talks for electricians, helping electricians reduce stress, gain back time, and earn more money. Hello and welcome back once again. My name is Ben Poulter, your host of ToolBox Talks for Electricians, and you're either two types of people right now. You're your own boss, considering if you should go get a job working for somebody else. Would life be that little bit easier? Or you're working for somebody else and you want to take the step to being your own boss, but you're a bit scared and thinking maybe I won't have any work, or all these things running through your head, and you're not sure whether to take that leap or not. And this goes through every self-employed electrician's head all the time. So I'm here to weigh it up, to list the pros and the cons, to see whether becoming your own boss as an electrician will be a good move or not. But be warned, if you do venture into the world of being your own boss, I don't think there's any turning back. You sort of become unemployable and you get used to the ways of, well, maybe working for yourself and being your own boss, because in my opinion, it is a lot better. I'm not sure if I'm just maybe a stubborn git or just too opinionated, but the last company I worked for as self-employed that I subcontracted to for a few years, I didn't get on with them too well, but I'll tell you more about that in a bit. So let's start with being employed. And I'll admit, yeah, it has got its benefits and it's a great way to start out because you gain the knowledge and experience from obviously working with other electricians, and you'll get the qualifications, you'll get put through college, you'll get put through maybe an apprenticeship, and being employed through a company, they'll help you do that and they'll maybe pay for that because obviously the cost of the electrician's training, it can be quite expensive. I think you can pay up to $7,000 to become a qualified electrician. That's just the qualification to get you to a standard to where you're actually certified on paper as a qualified electrician. There's obviously more, the 2391 inspection and testing and your EV charges. There's a lot more you can go on to as well. And then also being employed, you sort of just turn up. That's all you got to do. You got to turn up to that office in the morning. They give you your materials. They give you the van. They've got it all insured for you. All you need to do is get in that van and go and do the work, what they ask you to do. They've went out and found you the work. They've got a whole list of work that you need to do maybe that day or that week. So they give you the list and you go out and do it and get paid. So in effect, being employed is sort of a simple life, I'd say. And another advantage to that would be your van, because the van can cause problems sometimes if it's an older van because you couldn't afford maybe a new one. Then if that breaks down or anything goes wrong, it's not necessarily your problem. That's a problem with the company. You can say to them, right, I've got a flat tire. Right, the engine lights come on. You give them the van back and it's down to them to sort out. So that's another benefit of being employed. And then also working for a company employed, if the work dies down, say they haven't got much work on over a certain period, well, that's not really your problem. You still get paid that certain wage. They want to keep you on their books as an electrician, like employed, then they've still got to pay you your set wage. You might not get extra overtime. You might not get a little bit more of a bonus in your wage for certain jobs, but you still know exactly what you're going to get paid that month or that week. And then even if you decide to take a holiday, you have a couple of weeks off, you're still getting paid because you're employed. You're entitled to a few weeks off. So that person who employs you, that company that employs you, they have to pay you for them few weeks off, and you'll still get your set wage or your set hourly rate or whatever you agreed with that company. You'll still get that, whatever happens. So it is a pretty easy life as an employed electrician. But a lot of electricians that are employed, they moan about the hourly rate, thinking £20 an hour, that's a JIB rate, that's rubbish. But if you look into maybe how much that they pay out for your insurance, for your public liability, you don't have to pay that out if you're employed, for your van and the maintenance, they've got a lot of overheads to cover as a business owner. So being self-employed as an electrician, yeah, you get a pretty good deal sometimes. So as you can see, there's quite a few pros to being employed as an electrician. And there's probably a few more, like you get a pension, maybe. A lot of companies now, they've had to give you sort of a pension to save up for when you obviously retire. But there's a lot of other things that could be added to it too. Maybe they pay for your tools. It depends. Every company's different. You might not get a tool allowance. You might not get to be able to use that van in the evenings because they've got a tracker on them where you can only use them for business. But there is quite a few benefits to be an employed electrician. But it's not all sunshine and roses, in my opinion. I've worked for a lot of companies back in the day when I first got qualified, or I was an apprentice basically. I worked for a company through my apprenticeship, and there's a few cons to being employed as well. Because when you work for a company, maybe you have to put in the hours to get paid. Even if you're good at your job and you can say, yeah, I can this, I've been given all day to do this job, you can bang it out within a couple of hours. Well, you still get that certain amount paid. You still get paid the same amount whether you work fast or slow. There's no incentive, in effect, to do a better job, to get it done quicker. You're paid for the hours that you're actually working for that company. So say it's a JIB, right, of around 20, 22, 25. I'm not sure what it is, but say it's around £20 an hour. So whatever you do, if you can earn that company that they've put in a price for maybe £500, you get it done in a couple of hours. You'll still get your 2 hours wage, which, yeah, you'll still get your 2 hours wage. But what if that was your own job? What if you were the boss? You'd be making quite good money. Another disadvantage I found for working as an employed electrician, that when you're working for a different company, you're working for them. You're building their reputation. You're building their customer list, saying you're doing a great job, and the customers, well, fantastically happy with what you've done. They're going to call that company again to get the work done. They'll never say, right, I want Ben. I want Ben to come and do it. They'll just say, right, I want that Ben Electrical or whoever you're working for. They'll want them to come and do the job. So you're building up their company to be bigger and better in the long run, which in effect, you've got no loyalty to that customer. Because as an electrician, you may know you work for, well, I worked for about 5 or 6 different companies as an employed electrician back in the day. And I didn't have a customer base. I couldn't take time off and then go straight back to having sort of a customer base to say, right, I'm back working as an electrician. I could do that. I didn't have that. Those customers that I did the work for, they were the company's customers. They're the people that I worked for, their customers. They're the ones that sort of held their details. So in effect, I was building someone else's business, someone else's dreams. And to me, that felt like, well, I could do this for myself. Another thing that I found being employed as an electrician, that it doesn't matter how good of a spark you are, you could be the best spark in the world. But if you're employed and their management team or the management side of the company is rubbish, you've got a bit of a bad reputation, and that company maybe goes under, well, you're left with no job. It's you're working as a team to sort of build that company. And there's a few people. There's always a few people in the office that you think he's an idiot. He's rude to the customers. Maybe the customer doesn't like that person in the manager role that went out and quoted, but they're like you. So you've got to rely on other people, maybe bringing the work and building the reputation of the business as well, which in my eyes was a little bit of a con, because this has happened to me before. When I was an apprentice, I went to Nottingham to do my AM2, and the day I got qualified, that company went into liquidation. I didn't even know if I passed my AM2 or not. I got a call from the company to say, Ben, right, when you get back from Nottingham, can you drop your van and the tools back off in the office? Well, I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. I wasn't qualified at the time, so I didn't know what I could do or where I could go. So the best idea I come up with was go to Ibiza for 2 weeks. I was quite young. I enjoyed the party. So I thought, well, I'll just figure it all out when I get back. But luckily, when I got back, obviously I found out that I'd passed the AM2 and I was actually qualified electrician. And that was when I started subbing for different companies. I didn't go to get employed again. I thought, right, yeah, subbing. A lot of people sub, they get paid good wages. And that's what a lot of the other lads did that we got laid off. We got stopped. We didn't have a job anymore. So a lot of the other lads, they went to subcontracting for other companies. So that's exactly what I did as well. And I would say that, yeah, it was fun. It was fun subcontracting because me and my brother, we got a car and we just subcontracted all over the country where we were lodging out. But the tough part for me was through my apprenticeship, all I'd done is sort of DC power and a bit of AC work with a maybe armored cable. I'd only ever seen metal conduit, 20 mil conduit, and threaded it at college. But the first subcontracting job I did was building a hotel, wiring out a whole hotel. You know what? In steel conduit. I had to jump on it and learn it as I went along. And this is what I think maybe a lot of guys do when they go to college or they get the qualification on a bit of paper. And yeah, they've maybe threaded a bit of rod or they've bent a bit of conduit to a 90-degree angle in college. On site, it seems is completely different. It's a lot harder, especially when you've got no fault, like no room for fault, sorry. And you don't want to put sliders in everywhere. You've got to make it perfectly neat. You've got to get it to marry straight up to that metal trunking. It's a little bit more difficult. But as it was me and my brother, and we knew each other quite well, we just jumped in and sort of got used to it. We trial and errored. We did our best and we got away with it because I didn't quite know just then that you can get away with murder on site. And I don't know if it's still like it now, but half the people our age were sort of taking a little nap in the material containers because of the skinful that they had the night before. A lot of lads, even the scaffolders and the electricians, the plumbers, the joiners, everyone was sort of lodging out. We're all brought up there to work on that project, and we're all staying in the home hotel. So in the evenings, yeah, it was quite a bit of a party. And I didn't realize that maybe on a Friday, you just show up for possibly an hour. You show up for an hour, you pack your tools away, and you get on the road to travel back home. Not a lot of people worked maybe on a Friday. Yeah, you got up at 4 o'clock on the Monday to get there at a decent time, but Friday was sort of home time. All you did, you had a skinful Thursday night, and you sat in the van with a hangover and drove home on the Friday. I don't know what it's like on site these days. I'm hoping it's a lot different and a lot more strict with the health and safety and maybe the test to see whether you've had a skinful the night before. Because I don't really remember getting a lot done on site. We just got paid to turn up. And we were sitting around in that electrical cupboard with obviously our hard hat and all our PPE we had on, with my brother throwing nuts and bolts at me down the lift shaft. It was just a bit of a jolly, I'd say, hanging around on site, being a subby. And there was no incentive to really get much done because you got employed, whatever, you got paid to be there. So yeah, subcontracting for me wasn't, it was a bit of a learning curve to get into industrial and commercial, but there was no incentive to get that job done perfectly because you got paid whether you were there or not sometimes. All you had to do as a subcontractor was fill in your timesheet. You give the site manager your timesheet and you got paid. So subbing was quite an easy one for me as well. And then after becoming fully qualified, they were giving me £16 an hour, which was a great amount of money back in maybe the year 2000, 2003, 2002, something like that. Quite a few years ago. I'm assuming things have changed. It wasn't until my daughter arrived on 2004 that I decided to start up on my own. I wanted a bit more time at home. I wanted to be around a little bit more. So that's when I thought, right, I'm going to start up on my own and do my own business. And yeah, I'll admit it was scary at first. That is obviously why I continue to subcontract for other local companies for maybe a couple of days a week, where the other 3 days I'd concentrate on finding my own work. And because I was young, I was never interested in sort of working the weekends. I like my weekends. The weekends were for partying, so I was quite young. So all I did was maybe work, well, 100% full pelt in the week. But after I got into the swing of things, I found out that there's a lot of benefits to being your own boss. You get paid so much more. And when you crack the job out and get it done a lot quicker, you get paid even more too. And when you're working for yourself, there's a bit more of an incentive to get the job done. Because being your own boss, you sort of work harder because you know if there's anything that goes wrong, you're the one that's going to have to explain to the customer what's gone wrong or maybe why they maybe get charged more. It's all sort of falls down on you. Being your own boss, I found that it's a lot more laid back. You can choose like whether you want to lodge out or not, or whether you want to actually do the job sometimes. You can pick and choose your work. You don't have to sort of do what you're told when you're told. And you don't have to go to your boss and say, please, may I have these 2 weeks off because I want to go on holiday with my family. You don't have to do that. You can just take the day off or even the week off, or you could even skip off traveling for a year and take a time out. And then, like some guys, they might go off traveling to Australia and think about, hang about, I like it in Australia. And they stay there. They don't even come back. So there's a lot more sort of laid back vibe to being your own boss. You can do what you want when you want. And then when you're your own boss, building your own business, you're building your own reputation. You're building your own customer. It's all down to you. So the bigger and better you become, the more work you get. And this can build up and get bigger and better over the years, just like it has with me. When you make a good impression on a customer, they always remember you. And however many years later down the line they need an electrician, they'll always remember you. And maybe you might go to a job where they say, oh, so and so recommended me. You might not have seen that guy for maybe 5 or 6 years, but they still remembered the great job you did and pass your number on to maybe a factory that needs a load of LED lights changing. What a lovely, easy job. I've done that before. I did a factory. It had, I can't remember how many, but I knew how much the job cost. It was a 15 grand job. And it was nice and easy to change these factory fittings over. And that was again because I was recommended through somebody I did a job for years ago. And thinking about the van as your own boss, you get to keep the van all the time. It's the same van you have. You can sit in your van, you can do it nice and neat and tidy and have everything set out exactly where you want it. Because when I was employed as an electrician, we used to have to chop and change vans all the time. And half the time you'd get someone else's van and they wouldn't keep it tidy, or they wouldn't have the certain kit that you use all the time. They'd let it run out. So it'd be a mess. So that's, to me, maybe an OCD thing, but I like things being just so. So I like turning up to the job, knowing exactly what I've got in the van and what kit I'm going to use. And I've got maybe got 2 or 3 spare, because you need that kit. You need the job to get the job done that day. And I enjoy having my own van that I keep nice and tidy and clean, and I look after it. It's just being your own boss. It gives you a lot more freedom in your life. I'm a massive fan of that. I would say also that one of the biggest bonuses, you can't get sacked as your own boss, because, well, you're not going to sack yourself, are you? And there is a few more responsibilities you need to consider from being your own boss, because you'll need to do the books, you'll need to do the accounts and keep them in order. But you can just be the conductor of the orchestra, in effect. You can get an accountant to do that for you. Another responsibility would be the maintenance of the van. I recommend getting that van serviced once a year and keep it on record. It ends up making it worth a lot more when you do eventually go to sell it as well. And plus, they always say, look after your van and the van will look after you. So stick it in the garage every now and again, get it serviced, because then it will keep you rolling. Because without a van, you ain't going to get to the job, are you? Another thing, what a lot of self employed electricians struggle with is finding customers. Because if you haven't got any customers, you basically don't get paid. You don't make any money. But as we all know, you're an electrician. You like a challenge. And every electrician I know, they've all tried to be their own boss. They've all tried to be self employed and run their own business. And it maybe is for some electricians or it isn't for others. But if you don't give it a go, you'll never know. Because some people, they thrive off a challenge about being their own boss and enjoy the challenges that they're faced with every day. But others, they sort of like the easy life. And I'll be honest, both are perfectly good ways of being an electrician in today's society. But being your own boss, it just makes you that much more money. And then let's be honest, if you've become a fully qualified electrician, you've done it for maybe a couple of reasons. Because you enjoy working with electrics and fixing people's houses and fixing people's problems, or you know that you can earn good money as an electrician. Because if you didn't, you'd just be working in a charity shop in town for free. So if you're still on the fence about maybe being your own boss and giving it a go, you've basically got nothing to lose, in my opinion. Give it a go. Be your own boss. Start your own business. It could be beneficial to you and maybe just in your life as an electrician. And it could do yourself a benefit by checking out this podcast, How to Start Your Own Electrical Business Properly, with great advice in there on how to start up to be your own boss as an electrician. Some great tips and some great tricks on what the lessons that I learned along the way. So I'll leave a link to that podcast in the show notes below so you can easily find it and check it out. So until next time, good luck.